What's going on? It's Young Guapo back at it again with peace of mind. Here to give you a piece of my mind to help you have more peace of mind. Yes, sir, let's get to it. So, today I'm going to be talking about the importance of fathers, the importance of fatherhood, why you need dads in your life, why we need fathers, why people should get married, basically, but more so for men, more so specifically for fathers. And these are just my reasons that I found from my experience, and it's my opinion. So if you don't agree, it's okay. Number one reason is it teaches you how to be a man. Teaches you how to be a man. Human beings learn from experiencing things, going through things, and watching things. So if you see somebody doing something and you see somebody being a good father, then you have an example of how to be a good father. You have an example of the ways that you can be a good father and how to treat people, how to treat women, what it looks like. If you don't have a good example of what it looks like, you're not going to be able to replicate it because we learn from experiencing things and watching things, and that's primarily what it takes. And if you don't, and what better way to learn than to have a man who shows you every single day, day in, day out. And some people just happen to not have the best fathers, so they still will or can teach people how to be bad fathers, and that will lead to more bad fathers. But ultimately, I mean, if you have a good father, then you have a there's a higher likelihood that you're going to treat your wife the same way that your dad treated your mother, or your grandpa treated your grandma, and so forth. And it just helps, it helps so much in our lives to be able to have that example. And maybe your dad like talks to you, says he loves you, or maybe he didn't say he loved you, so now you know, I want to, that hurt me, and I would like to be able to tell my kids I love them. Or maybe your mom hit your dad hit your mom, and now you know, okay, I should never beat a woman. Or maybe you think it's okay to beat women, and that's something that has you have to learn to change. But it's better that you had the example so that you know now how to react otherwise. You know the other side, and you know it's something that needs to be corrected. Maybe you hated when your dad hit your mom, and you say, okay, I vow to never put my hands on women. And that's where you have a soft spot for women, and that's when you're going to be able to really go in and do that work necessary. Or maybe you make it like your life mission or something to just be good for women and be good to women. And because of that, but it all comes from having the father and seeing it. Whether your father was the best man or the worst man, having one is still much better than having no example whatsoever. And in my personal experience, I have seen many instances and cases where people had no fathers, and the son treats the mother like terrible, and just like talks back to her, is so disrespectful. Even though that's like the person who gave birth to you and provided for you is the only reason why you are where you are in life, they still happen to be extremely disrespectful and rude. And I don't know what that is. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's just harder when you don't have a father to be like, oh, you know, I'm gonna shut that down, or no, don't talk to your mom like that. And it just helps a lot to have that accountability, to that second partner to really sit the kid down and be like, oh, you need this. Another great reason for needing a father is because a lot of times one person isn't enough. I mean, no, one person just, it's not enough. That's the reason why God made a household to need two people. Why he made mother and father, because just one person is just not enough. Most of the time, you need a companionship, a partnership to be able to rule and raise a family. In order to rule over a family, it's like if you have one parent, no one human being is perfect. So the more great ideas, the partnership, the more people you have that come together, maybe not the more, but the two people you have that come together in order to help raise that family really helps for everything, because like the kids get somebody else. Like I know there was times growing up, if you had two parents, sorry if you didn't, but if you had two parents, there was times growing up where you went up to your mom or you went up to your dad and you were like, hey mom, can I go hang out with my friend? And mom was like, no. So then you're like, okay, bet, let me call up dad and see what dad thinks. about what mom said, but you're not gonna tell them that mom said no. You're just gonna ask them the same question you asked mom, and then you call up dad and say, "Hey, dad, do you think it's okay for me to sleep over at my friend's house or go hang out with my friends?" Dad says, "Yeah, sure, no problem. I see nothing wrong with it." So then you're like, "All right, bet. Thanks, dad. Great, dad. I love you." And then you go and you call up mom and you're like, "Hey, mom, you know, dad said it was great. Dad said it was a great idea for me to go and hang out with my friends." And then mom's like, "But I said no." And then you're like, "Yeah, but dad said yes, and he's my parent too." So then, I mean, usually that causes some type of discourse or something, but I mean, you have that other opinion. So then now mom and dad have to come together and they have to talk it out. And mom goes, why are you telling him he can go hang out with his friends? You know I don't like that." And then dad's like, "Oh, but what's the big deal?" And then maybe generally they come to a mutual consensus, and mom's most likely gonna be like, "Oh, anytime I tell you to say no, anytime I say no, don't go ask your dad if I heard he said no." And then, I mean, it already happened, so maybe mom's gonna be like, "Okay, but this time," or she'll be like, "No, no means no," and now you know, and now you know. I mean, you need that dynamic. You need that dynamic to come together in order to have this type of result, in order to have that balance, because the scale is uneven if it only has one weight on it, if there's only one side. One thing about fatherhood, well, another thing about why fatherhood is important is women get treated better. In this life, there are so many instances, so many cases where you see women getting mistreated, women getting treated like crap, women not really being held as like just on the pedestal they're supposed to be put on, or not being respected, not being treated right. Although not being put on a pedestal, we are all God's creations and we all deserve a certain level of respect, a certain level of just care and honor that each human being deserves. And you'll notice that people who do not have great fathers, great relationships with their father, or don't have fathers at all, tend to not treat women better. And when that happens, I mean, you see a whole lot of cycles repeated, a whole lot of things continue, and it just isn't the best for women and anybody, because women end up not trusting men. They end up getting misused and abused by guys who didn't know how to treat their women the right way, who never had that example. You have women who can never trust a guy again because of a guy who didn't have a father, or women who just get their hearts absolutely shattered and broken, and they're just down bad, sad in the doonies, just sad and going through depression and stuff over a guy who they didn't even have to be with, who wouldn't have even wasted his time with her if his intentions was to be a good father if he was thinking about the kids that he would actually have one day, instead of temporary, momentary pleasure and gain that wasn't gonna last. And now you have two people that came together who were not supposed to come together, and who are dealing with the consequences from it. Although they may not both see it as consequences, it's most definitely detrimental and does not help in the grand scheme of things. You just go through things from connections with people who you weren't supposed to be connected to, and that's not ideal. It will result in less broken hearts. Less people will have heartbreak because less people will be interested in meeting people who they weren't interested in. Honestly, people who they had no intentions of doing anything good with, having a good life, maybe having some kids. If every time a man pursued a woman was to figure out if this was supposed to be his wife, because he saw he had two parents and his dad treated his mom great, so now he wants to replicate and emulate type of that same type of relationship, that same type of communion that he saw between the two of them, then that will be something that he aims to achieve for himself as well, and something that he tries to get into, something that he's looking towards, because he was like, wow, My parents had a great relationship. I would love if I could figure out how I could have such a great relationship too for myself. I would love to be able to have that type of bond that my parents had. Another thing is that it breaks the cycle. Fatherlessness leads to fatherlessness, because without that father, you don't know that you need a father. You don't know how to treat a woman, so that results in you never knowing how to treat a woman sometimes, God forbid, but it contributes, because then you're out here sleeping with girls you had no intention of making a family with, but yet y'all have kids together. And what does that lead to? Another kid who doesn't have a father, another kid who doesn't have a healthy relationship to follow and look at and take guidance from. Another kid who never knew what it was like to have a two-parent household or a loving father to take care of him and to love him and to show him what it's like, what it means to really be a man, what it means to really love your family and to treat your kids right, to treat your wife right. You don't have, and that kid will not have that same example to follow off of, and that will result in that child not being able to be in the best position that he could have been in life, and growing up just without a father. Because I had the luxury of growing up with a father, and it's something I'll never take for granted. I love my dad. I love the relationship we have, and it's like my dad wasn't the absolute best father, because nobody's dad is. Very rarely. I mean, you have to just be perfect, and nobody's perfect. So it's like he was the best father for me. Like, I appreciate him, but there's everybody has things that they could have done a little bit better, and there's things that my dad could have done a little bit better. But he was overall he is and was a great dad to me, and showed me how to treat a woman right. And there are certain things where I'm like, okay, bet, because I've seen it, not because he was perfect, but because I've seen it. Now I'm able to see the places where he fell short, and I'm able to compensate for those in my character. And sometimes there's things that you just get on accident, things that subconsciously just develop in you because you've seen it repeated over and over. And these are things that somebody else might point out to you, and you're like, whoa, my dad was just like that. But it would be even worse if I had to figure that out for myself. If I had to just be myself and treat women however I wanted to, or how I thought was right. And not everybody has the honor and the privilege of being able to know God from an early point. Because if you do, then God could really show you how to be a good father. But even with God, there are things that just as human beings we need to learn and know for ourselves. And for me, I can be like, okay, God loves me. I see the way God treats me. I see the way God cares for me. I see the way he forgives me every time I do something wrong. So when I'm a father, I'm going to forgive my kids every time they do something wrong. But there might be something like, oh, but I talk back. And because you don't, maybe God doesn't talk back to you. So, or you never have like back and forth conversations with God. So he's not able to talk back. And now you talk back, and you talk back because your dad used to talk back, or you talk back because you've always talked back to everybody and you didn't have a dad. So now that's something that you have to work on for yourself, and you have to be able to develop and grow in that, so that it doesn't become something that hinders you in your future. But having a father to see those places and those areas, especially if you have siblings who grew up in the same household, who lived a very, very similar experience to you, the ones who can relate to you the most in life, who they can be like, okay, you see how dad was like this? Yeah, don't be like that. And that's a great advantage of having a father or in two-parent household, because then you're able to form a unified family that's able to come together and help each other out, and you guys have like a nice little system going, like a nice little like party in your house, a nice little group of people who just, as you grow up, everyone grows up differently. They have different minds, different lives. Your kids can even be the ones that end up helping you. But if you're with somebody who you're not supposed to be with, you're having kids with people who you're not supposed to have kids with, then it ends up in just a whole lot of mess. My next thing is it leads to unnecessary attachments. You're attached to people you had no intention of being attached to. I know I'm saying this again, but it's important. Like, you're out here having whole kids with people who you don't even have to have kids with, because you didn't have the intention of being with them. And now a kid is a serious matter. if you have a kid, you're tied to this person for life. Like you're gonna be dealing with this. Say you have baby mama drama. Like that's where that stems from a kid not having a father. Now she's, oh, you didn't pay child support. Oh, you didn't spend time with your son. Like I need you to spend time with him. Oh, I'm gonna keep you away from your son because you don't love him as much, or because I don't like you. And now you're having all these issues, and the kids thinking, oh, why doesn't daddy want to love me? Maybe the mom's lying to the kids saying your dad never wants to see you, when meanwhile, I mean, she's just keeping him away. Or this could have all just been prevented if you actually thought about, oh, I want to be a father one day, so maybe I shouldn't be out here sleeping around. Because yeah, abortion's there, but abortion is like a cop out. It's like saying, oh, because I, well, first, because I slept with this woman who I didn't have any intention of having kids with, somebody doing an action that was supposed to be sacred for marriage. Now, because I've done something that I wasn't supposed to do, and then I used protection and it didn't work, or I didn't use protection and I didn't do what was necessary to prevent pregnancy, and now I'm out here suffering with the consequences. And there are consequences for your actions, and then it's like, okay, so because of that consequence, because I've done this wrong, because I kept on messing up. It's like insurance. Like it's like having insurance, except insurance that you shouldn't have had in the first place. Insurance that comes at the cost of somebody else's life. And that's like saying, for every time you use your car insurance, you're gonna have to lose another life. For example, like the person who you hit has to die in order for you to use your car insurance, when that person wasn't even the cause of the accident. They weren't even the cause of the mistake. But because you had insurance and because you made the mistake, you were like, okay, at least I know I have insurance. And it's just not fair, because I like my life. If I was killed in the womb, I most definitely would not be happy about it. My next thing is, it has better lives for the children, because two parent households are just phenomenal. Going out with mommy and daddy, having fun, it's just so much better than just mommy all the time. Mommy can get annoying. Sorry, mom, I love you, but everyone knows just mommy can get annoying. Just daddy all the time can get annoying. You don't want to just be with one parent all the time. But I will always cherish and remember those family vacations, those times where we went to like the park or something, or my parents, me and them went on walks when I was younger with the two of them. And it's like you're able to just bring the kids into this great, healthy relationship, have them live a happy life. And if you have sons, they're able to bond with the mom and dad. And if you have daughters, they're able to bond with the mom and dad, and they're able to see what it's like to be a woman, see what it's like to be a man, see how a man's supposed to treat a woman, so the daughter's able to know, okay, this is how my dad treats my mom. So I won't settle for less. I'm not gonna go for a woman, for a man who's anything less than what my father was, because my father was great. So I know that there's people out there who can be like that. And now when I look for a man, I'm gonna make sure he has these qualities and characteristics, or doesn't have these, because this is important to me and I've seen it already. And that's why it's important to be able to have that example, that model of what it's supposed to be like, so you have something to go off of. And then the same for guys. You see how your dad treated your mom, so you know, okay, bet this is how I treat my wife. I can't be less than my dad, because I'm the one he's the one I learned from him. So how could I do anything less than what he did? Because he's the best example I could ever have. I want to be just like my dad, my big, strong dad. Like, that's the guy you look up to, raised you, carried you on his back. It's just a nice experience, a nice feeling, and a better life. And my last point is, it leads to a happier world overall. Because if less people are out here doing things they shouldn't be with people that shouldn't be doing them with, it's going to lead to more people who are not struggling with a lot of things that they're struggling with and they don't need to be struggling with. And that's going to lead to a lot more happier people, because they're not out here wasting their time doing things they shouldn't be doing. And it's going to lead to a lot less people seeking love and validation from other sources that they shouldn't really be seeking it from, like gangs and violence and just and sex and things that we don't really need as bad as we think we need. in that moment of our lives, and things that we just don't need at all, honestly. So it's super important to have fathers, because I mean, and the biggest thing, like, people be like, oh, what about mothers? What about mothers? The Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. He who finds. So it starts with the fathers, because the man is the one who finds it first. He's the one who seeks it. He finds her. And women are just to be found. They're to be sought after. So it starts with the men, because you could be like, oh, what about all these girls going crazy out here? But no, that's just a byproduct of the fatherlessness. That's a byproduct of what the men have shown them and trained them, that okay, this is how men treat women. I've heard multiple girls in my life who are like, oh, I've never had a relationship because I've never met a guy who wants a relationship. But if the first guy they met had any intentions other than to sleep with them, then they, like, I've literally met girls who were like, oh yeah, I just all I do is have sex because I've never met a guy who wanted more than that. And that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible, because they think that, like, this is what I'm for. Like, I'm literally just for sex. Like, guys don't want relationships, so what choice do I really have? Like, this is just what I do. I mean, this is what I'm for. I mean, this is what a woman is. It's just an object for a man's pleasure. And although they may want it, it's like, what are you gonna do? Force a guy into a relationship? But yeah, this is why it's important for men to be fathers, and to seek women with the intent of being fathers, and to do everything in your life with the intent of being fathers. Because if you want to be a father, you're thinking, okay, I'm not going to waste this woman's time because I don't want to have kids with her. Or, okay, I'm not going to waste my time doing anything else. I'm not going to waste time not trying to get my money right, because I want to be a father one day. I want to be able to take care of my kids. I want to be able to lead my kids to have the best life possible. And that's why it's so very important to make sure that you can be a father. Maybe you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to work on my body so I can get a good wife one day who's going to be extremely attractive to me, so that we can have great kids together. Or I know that if I do this thing, it's going to put me in a better position for a good wife, and I'm going to have a good life, and I'm going to have good kids. And when you do all that, it's like the rest of the world follows, because God is the Father. And I mean, it just shows you, when you if you have a relationship with God, then it shows you what it's like to have a good father. And if you have a good father, it changes your life completely. So if you feel like there's any other reasons of why fatherlessness or having a father is good, or why fatherlessness is bad, if you have anything to add, any comments, any suggestions, or if you just want to just say something, then comment down below. If you feel like this video benefited you, drop a like, subscribe. I'm out.